Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea, I hope you're all well. So in this video we're going to be looking at GGD's modern and massive drum library. GGD stands for GetGood Drums. It's pioneered by Adam Nolly GetGood, who is a producer engineer extraordinaire, who you may also know from the band Periphery. GGD also consists of Misha Mansour, Matt Halpin and a few other guys. So hopefully you know who they are. If you don't, you should check them out because they make some really awesome drum libraries. And this is the newest installment. This is modern and massive. Now when I say newest installment, it has been out for a little while. I was sent this plugin quite a while ago, and the reason I haven't done a video on it yet is because I wanted to get it right. By that I mean I wanted to program it to my electric kit. And get to know the plugin and that kind of thing, get to know the sound and the libraries and all that stuff. So that's the reason that this video hasn't come out like immediately. Up until now I'd been using Toontrack's Superior Drummer 2.0 with the Progressive Foundry library. I do really love that, and I will still use it because I've got presets and sounds I use, and it really depends on the kind of thing you're trying to make. But I've been sent this and I'm trying it out, and I must admit I'm really impressed, and there's a couple of reasons why I'm really impressed and also really excited. Number one is my favourite reason. These drum libraries and these drum samples were created at Middle Farm Studios, which some of you may know is where Toska recorded their album. So that's cool, but the icing on the cake is that the samples are using the same drums, snares in the same room as what we used, because we used the drum kits that were there and the snares that were there as well, because they sound so good in that room and they've been picked for that room. And so it's really, really cool because I'm sat here listening to it and I'm going, I know that snare sound, I know the way that room sounds because we were there and we made an album there. And it's just, so that immediately I was like, that's awesome, I'm really excited to try it out. One other cool thing to mention is that you can use these samples in something like Trigger, Slate Trigger, as TCI files that you would load in. You just select the modern massive directory within Trigger and you can load them in, which is really cool because let's say you're recording in a terrible sounding room, or the drums are tuned badly or whatever, and you just need to get the actual performance of the player, not worry too much about the recording side. As long as those microphones and drum recordings are isolated enough that you can see the clear hit of the tom or hit of the snare, you can overlay these samples, including the room, and get yourself an incredible sounding drum recording anywhere, really, you know. So it's just really, really cool that they added that feature in, because plugins like Superior, you can't do that. It'd be really nice if you could, but you can't. So something like GGD allowing you to do that is really nice of them. I did play a little bit on the kit. There's a clip that I'll insert shortly where I just thought I'd set it up in a way that worked for me for at home, so you can see how I'd go about playing drums in. I don't normally program them. I used to do, but now I find it a lot easier to just play them in. So this is a sort of rough, unquantized drum clip that I did, so you can just see how it sounds and how it works with an electric kit. Cool, so hopefully you thought that sounded pretty good. I just added a little bit of compression, EQ and that kind of thing to make it sound like how you'd expect if you were to mix it a little bit maybe. But in this video I wanted to navigate around the plugin, show you some of the cool features, check out the groove packs, that kind of thing. So I've got a screen grab going on, and hopefully my Logic session will work, whereby I'm spitting out the audio into the Universal Audio Apollo 8P and then back in as an audio track so that you can hear exactly what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Anyway, so let's go over to the screen grab so you can see what's happening. Okay, so hopefully you can see in Logic now, I've got my audio track here. This is GetGood Drums, and then my two audio tracks that will be recording the drums back out. It's worth saying that to load this library, you need to use Contact, which is a free loader made by Native Instruments. I'm running Contact 5. And Contact 5 works by, you just load your libraries in, and then whatever library you might have, whether it's orchestral, drums, hip-hop, or whatever, I don't know. Whatever you've got. Anyway, this is one of those. So let me show you the main page. This is how it looks. It's also worth mentioning that I can spit out my drums to individual channels in Logic and mix it like a real kit, which we won't be looking at in this video. But if you are interested in doing that, there are videos online about how to do it. I like to do that because it means I can mix it like a real kit rather than mixing it in the plugin, making it quite CPU hungry. In any case, this is the main interface, and this is the kit I've currently got set up. It's really, really cool. I'll show you how you can click the drums to make it sound a certain way. So that's the sound of the kit. And obviously, you know, there's a drop down menu, much like other drum libraries you might have seen, where you can pick out the different drums you want. My favorite is the Gretsch Bell Brass, but that is because it's a beast. And this is what we recorded the album with. I think it sounds amazing, but you can also get a high tune version of it. And there are loads of different snares here. There's a Vinnie Paul Maple. Sounds chonky. Anyway, let's go back to the bell brass. This is a beastie Guru Paduk 22-inch kick, but they got loads of different ones. I'm not going to spend too much time going over the different drums in particular, but as you can see, this is your main interface. This is what it looks like. You've got a master volume and a reverb. Something else that's worth mentioning is in each of these tabs, so your kick tab, you've got multiple mics. So you've got your kick in, you've got your sub kick, overhead, large diaphragm, overhead, small diaphragm, and then you've got mono room, a close room mic, and a far room mic. It's really, really cool because it gives you control over many different elements of that particular drum, which is really useful in a mixing application. You can pan them, you can EQ them before they even hit your DAW, which is really nice. And then over on the right, you can do like high pass, low pass, add reverb. Something called turbo, which we'll get onto shortly, is a really nice feature if mixing isn't your strong game. Let's move across to snare. This is going to be really good to demonstrate the room, but there's your snare. And I can select top, I can select bottom, and then obviously overheads. But this is really cool. This is the room. And I can't tell you how similar, I mean, just it's like a photograph in my memory of audio. That's just how the room sounds. It's where we recorded everything. It's such a nice feature. Anyway, moving on, toms. And again, you can listen to them individually. And of course, they can be panned how you need them to be panned. Moving across to cymbals, you've got different cymbals you can choose from, lots of different cymbals. But I've chosen what I like. And again, they are panned. So like hats are panned to the left, ride is panned slightly over to the right, and then you want to keep, these are obviously stereo, so you don't want to pan them. But of course, you can EQ them before they even hit the DAW. It's just mega useful. Right, settings. Now, this is a really interesting area because sometimes when you're mixing, the hi-hat might be too loud on your overheads. If you're only using two overheads, left and right, you have less control over individual cymbals, like chinas, hi-hats and stuff. And if your drummer uses a particularly loud set of cymbals, like hi-hats, for example, like Ben does, they can be really intense and like it's really hard to get them level. So things like individual mics are really handy. But also what they've been able to do in GGD is you can listen to the overheads and actually pull down the individual level of different cymbals depending on what you want. So they've kind of compiled and blended those individual mics in with an overall overhead sound. And again, you can individually adjust the room level for different cymbals and all that kind of stuff. So it's mega involved, and I'm not quite sure how you go about compiling something like this. To be fair, I don't want to know. I'm just sure it's intense. And in any case, it's more about just how easy it is to use and mold the sound around what you do. Anyway, let's go back to the screen grab. So, as I said, we're in the room situation here. So it's going to be a bit hard to demonstrate because I can't actually hit the drum and then show you. But when we get to the groove packs, we can have a little look at this. But of course, mono room, close room, and far room. And then you have individual levels over each cymbal. So it's super useful if your hi-hats are too loud or your china's too loud, you can just bring them down. And again, you've got snare bleed. So like the bleed from the snare mic, from the kick and the toms. That can also be when you compress a snare heavily, you might get a lot of kick in there and it might start muddying things up. So you can pull that right out if you want. You can get as clinical or as washy as you want, which is super handy. Especially for me, the way I like to mix drums. Anyway, moving on, overheads, same situation. I've got individual controls over each cymbal in my overheads, so I can really fine tune the sound of my overheads. Mappings. Now this is how you would map a MIDI keyboard, a MIDI controller, an electric drum kit. So it took me a little while to work out this compared to Superior Drummer, just because it's a different interface, but it works a similar way, whereby you choose each individual MIDI controller has MIDI information it would send to the computer. For example, a snare drum on an electric kit, maybe C1, or well, a kick drums might be C1 when you kick it. So if you want to reprogram that, you would click record and then you would hit the kick drum and it would recognize what that is. Or you could manually change it out of all the different notes in the MIDI note spectrum. And that's how you would build a kit. Then you also have control over the velocity by default. If you're not a heavy hitter, but you want it to be heavy, you can just turn velocity up and even the softest hit will be full on. So that's really handy. And of course you can actually use a hi-hat pedal, which is just great because, you know, for a lot of drummers, myself included, it's nice to have a control over closing and opening the hi-hat, washing it, all that kind of stuff. And then you can actually individually change and adjust the velocity curve of each drum. So you might want your toms to be really soft. You can pull them down. You might want your kick to be super hard, or your snare to just be a super cracking snare the whole time. Anyway, that's the mapping section. And we do have presets. You can save your presets. You can import MIDI mappings. But for this, and we're going to jump between GGD and Halpen. These are set up so I can use the groove packs effectively, which is what we're going to get onto now. So let's click GGD. Now when we move across to groove packs, these are MIDI groove packs, so they're built up of MIDI information. What's nice about this is that they're already preset and you can adjust these afterwards by clicking and dragging them into your arrange window, opening piano roll, and then go ahead and adjust individual hits by velocity or whatever. So I've got an Anup Sastry MIDI pack, I've got a Halpen one and a Wojtek one, all different styles, many different grooves in different BPMs, and then there are different patterns. So you've got absolutely tons of different grooves to mess around with when writing songs. If you're not a drummer or you don't have time to program drums or your understanding of what your drums should be doing isn't very good, you can use packs like this because, well, it's just easier. You know, if you just want to write your riffs, you can write your riffs to this. So let's have a listen to a groove. Let's choose a Halpen one because, you know, Matt Halpen, beast. My current session's set to 105 as I'm recording, so let's have a quick listen. If you double click, it will play. So immediately you've got a groove you can write to. I can hear music over that already. Super handy. And of course you can adjust the sound of this whilst it's playing, which I'll show you now. And of course you can adjust those hits. If you don't want them to be exactly like that, you can change them around if you want. But anyway, let me show you, by playing this in a loop, I can show you how the plugin works. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll do mic blends first, and then I'll tell you about Turbo. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play a pattern, and then I'm going to mess with the blend so you can hear what happens. So hopefully that demonstrated how by looping the drums I could mess around with different levels. Just a quick like mess around so you can see how much you can affect the sound and mix it before it even hits your DAW. Of course you can have this dry if you want, and then you can just send out the dry information and then do it yourself, create your own room with reverb if you want. But the cool thing about that is the room itself is an incredible sounding room. Many bands use it because it sounds so good. So I would recommend using the room. What I want to do next is touch on turbo. So turbo is kind of like a mix preset, but it's on a dial, which is a really nice feature because it means you can. So what basically Nolly will have sort of mixed and EQ'd the drums, how he thinks they sound great and how they would work in a mix really well, and to variant degrees. I'm sure he's done like many of these, like starting with a little bit all the way up to the top, and then they've kind of profiled the whole thing. And it means you can go through the dial and select how much of that processing you want before it hits your DAW if you don't know how to mix drums, or you're just trying to do a quick demo and you want them to sound fat. So the best way of me showing you this, not only can you do it to individual mics, but you can do it as a whole package. So you can do all the kick mics and add the turbo by linking them, or you can do it separately. So I'll show you really quickly how it works, and then we'll apply it to the different elements of the kit so you can hear how it comes and sounds full blast, and it's really, really impressive. All right, let's choose a groove. I've gone into the Wajtek pack. I found this one, it sounds cool. So I'm gonna start the groove off, and then we're gonna jump back over to the individual sort of mics, and I'll show you basically like an individual mic and how the turbo works. Then I'll link the whole thing and you'll hear it sort of sum mix the whole lot. So here we go. We'll start off this groove, and here we go. So hopefully that made sense what I was doing. I was looping the drums and then just adding that sort of processing to each microphone, and then showing you how it works as like a sum mix. It's just super handy. You could hear how suddenly the drums became alive with that particular groove. And it's just a really handy way of not having to worry about how to mix the drums. You know, that's a great sound, and I can just track to that if I want to and get my demos out, or even my songs. As I said before, my favourite way to do it is to multi-output, spit them out into my DAW, and then mix with my other plugins, my universal audio plugins, waves and all that kind of stuff, which is how I like to work. But as I said, for most people, You might not be into mixing drums, you might not be into, you know, having lots of plugins and all that kind of stuff. You might use GarageBand or something really basic. Having a plugin like this with a library full of samples like that is super handy when it comes to just getting a great drum sound straight off the bat. And I can't speak higher enough of the quality of these samples. And the fact it was recorded in Middle Farm is just an amazing thing. Nolly is not someone that messes around when it comes to recording. If you've ever seen any of the Periphery recording documentaries, he is so particular, and for good reason. And I think, you know, when it comes to mixes and stuff like that, you know, he's obviously very prolific, but for me, where he shines through is as an engineer, because when it comes to stuff like this, providing a product like this for people, what you want is you want the full spectrum, going from however clinical or unclinical you want it to sound. But having that all there takes a lot of knowledge and a lot of expertise to engineer a sample in that way. So just hats off. I think the quality of GGD is really, really up there. And I think I'm going to be using it for a long time in demos and stuff like that. Really, really impressive. I'm going to be using this going forward. As I said, I've got the libraries that I use as well, but this is definitely going to be up there with some of my favourites, especially because it's done at Middle Farm. And yeah, like, let me know what you think. I'll put links in the description box. You can go to their website, check out more. They've got other libraries, and I'm sure they'll be adding to this. But check it out. Like I said before, I'm going to be using this a lot. I really do recommend it. So yeah, take it easy, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you all very soon.